Hi, welcome back to Entitled to Life for part two of our two-part look at COVID-19 and school openings. I'm Paul Gibbs with my co-host Katie Drake, and our guests today are teacher David Page and parents Amanda Robison. And one more thing with you, Amanda, with your first grader, how is she doing with her understanding of the situation, of why this is happening and everything? There's a definite difference in age there. She's a few years older than my 4-year-old, but he all he really understands is that there are a lot of germs and we've got to be careful of them. But he can be very confused to the point where one time we walked past the playground that he hasn't been able to go to, and he said, "Daddy, Mommy was wrong. I don't see any germs anywhere." And I had to explain to him that you don't actually see the germs. And that's one of, just from a parenting perspective, trying to make a very young child understand is really challenging. Again, a first grader, she's older, but still on the young end.
Yeah. I feel like I'm kind of lucky because she's a very logical first grader. Like when she was little, we tried the thing, tell them that she has monsters in her mouth and you have to brush them out. And we tried that to get her to brush her teeth, and she'd be like, "There's not monsters in my mouth." But when you tell her that there are germs in her mouth that we need to clean out, or if we do not wear a mask, we could get other people sick, or you could get sick, she's like, "Okay, that makes total sense." But then there's my 3-year-old who's like, you tell him he has swords on his hands or clowns that he has to wash off, he's like, "Okay, I'll do that."
Well, yeah, and that's the way it is with me, with my 4-year-old. I tend to put everything into, there are germs and we have to be superheroes to fight them, and filter it through that kind of thing, which tends to be how I process things anyway. So it works just fine, but it's...
Yeah, but my 6-year-old with anxiety and sensory processing disorder can wear a mask, and she frequently forgets that she's wearing her mask and that she can take it off when we get back home. I'm like, why are people complaining about my child with anxiety and sensory processing disorder who freaks out when she bumps her toe and will have a 30-minute meltdown can wear a mask?
Then any adult should be able to. We actually we're going to have Katie and Andrea were going to actually let us speak to their kids to let us get a little bit of that perspective. So let's bring them on here and learn a little bit about how they personally feel about this, not just secondhand.
Sure. So this is Katie. I've got my 2 kids here. Do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
So I am Genevieve, the little kid that is 6.5 years old.
And Genevieve is going into first grade.
Yeah. My name's Caroline, and I'm going into middle school, 7th grade at Clayton here in Utah. So, yeah.
So,
do you want to go first?
Do you guys want to tell us a little bit about, now we're going to all online school starting out. How are you guys feeling about starting school with COVID and everything? Are you sad to not be going to your class and stuff?
I am kind of scared because I'm going to meet new people.
Yeah.
And I'm really shy.
So that's not very different from the regular year. Are you worried a little bit about making friends being online and things like that? Is it harder to make friends in a Zoom room versus in person?
I think the Zoom room is a little bit better a little bit more hard to do because you can't have your teacher talk to you, and it's a little bit more easier to talk and
in person.
Yeah.
Okay, let's let Caroline tell her thoughts now.
I personally am not very worried about, I'm kind of flexible of it'll be harder online, but I will be able to make it work. I personally am very grateful that we are going online because there are last year, there were a lot of kids in my class who had single parents who worked 2 jobs and didn't have any health care insurance. And I'm glad that we're going online so that they don't have to suffer, because one of my least favorite things is seeing friends and people that I love suffer. And I think that would be very hard. So I'm very glad that we're going online because that will help them and all of us stay safe. And also, it not only helps us as students, but our parents and our grandparents, and even sometimes our great-grandparents and all of our other friends. And I feel like it really helps to do it online because even if it may be harder, it's a lot safer. The downside of that, though, is that a lot of kids don't have enough computers or internet service in their house, and they don't have even like a phone that they could do it on. So that is very difficult for a lot of kids. I am very grateful that we have computers and I have a phone that I can use. And so if my dad's working on our computer, I can either go onto our other computer or use my phone for a Zoom class, which makes it a lot easier to do the classes. And my teacher actually recently emailed us and said that we had to email her and let her know if we couldn't do a Zoom class, which is great, but it's also difficult for the kids that can't do the Zoom classes at all because they don't have computers or internet service or any of that.
Yeah. Caroline, one thing that I think is interesting for you is that you're going into a new school, making that transition from elementary into junior high school during all of this and everything. Are you nervous about that? How does that change the social dynamic and the school dynamic?
Yeah, I feel like it's already, I'm getting a lot of anxiety from starting at a new school, a new year, making new friends, being separated from half of my friends. That's been very hard. And I feel like it will be difficult for online school, but it is definitely a lot harder than starting a new school year at the same school or like just transitioning up a grade in the same school, because you're not only transitioning up a grade, but you're meeting new teachers who have completely different dynamics of teaching. And you haven't got to learn their dynamic. So you're going in on a Zoom class and saying, oh, you're doing it this way? Okay, I'll learn that way. Let me go search it up when after all my 4 Zoom classes, when we're done, and then I'll do all my other classwork. And I feel like it will just be a lot harder. It will be a lot more time consuming and more difficult with homework. They probably won't give out like paper homework. You'll have to print it out, which is hard if you have like a printer or you don't have a printer or one that doesn't work. And I feel like that will be difficult for a lot of kids. Thankfully, we have a printer that works just fine, but yeah. I'm mainly not concerned for myself, but for other kids.
Yeah, this is one thing that has really made us realize that we have a lot of privilege, hasn't it? Yeah. Anyway, let's hear from Andrea's kids. Thanks so much, Caroline.
Can I stay?
Thank you so much, Caroline and Genevieve, for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it so much. Andrea, let's talk to. I see your daughter is there with you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'll have her go first. So this is Rylan, and Rylan is 11. She is in the 6th grade. So go ahead and what do you want to say? Do you want to say something specific, or do you want to answer a question?
Well, okay, for one thing,
Okay.
in class, they like separate class and split it. So there's half of the class gone, and then they come the next day and half of the class there. So we only have minimal people, maybe like 12 people at the max. And they just sort everything out by like lunches. You have to only have 4 people at an 8 per person table. You have to bring your own water bottle. You are not allowed to use drinking fountains unless to refill. And there's like just a lot of stuff.
Does that stuff make you feel uncomfortable, nervous? Do you like it? Like, how do you feel about that?
So sometimes I feel a bit nervous, like on the first day, because today was my first day. Really nervous. I only had a few friends in class because some of my other friends were on like in a different classroom because of the last names, which made me really sad because I have a few best friends. But I'm pretty okay with it. It's pretty safe. Like outside, you're only allowed to wear like your mask like 6 feet apart from everyone. The ground duty will tell you that you're like 6 feet apart and everything. But yeah, they're just being very safe and everything.
So are you okay with those safety measures? Does it make you sad or happy, or what are your thoughts on the safety measures?
Mostly it makes me happy because it's keeping everybody safe. I also like, I'm okay with wearing a mask. I'm used to it. Everybody else is like, oh, I gotta wear a mask. It hurts my ears. I'm like, I'm okay with it because I've been wearing it for a long time. For example, like cheer, I have to wear it for a lot of stuff. And yeah, I'm just feeling most of the time happy that they're just keeping everybody safe and trying not to make COVID-19 spread.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
That was great. Okay, well, I'll turn the time over to my oldest. Come on over, Hurricane. She can introduce herself.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Kinsey Sorensen. Well, you already know I'm her daughter. So, let's see.
15.
I am 15. I just started 10th grade. So I just started my first year late in high. And I feel like, oh, is there like something specific that I should talk about? Or?
Yeah. Paul or Katie, do you have any questions? Anything specific?
You know, first year of high school, that's a big transition under any circumstances.
Yeah.
And you're making that transition under very different circumstances than usual. How do you feel about that? Is that difficult? Is that upsetting at all, or are you just kind of dealing with it?
I mean, for my case, I'm dealing with it fine. I guess, like, sure, it's a little different to not be going to high school, how, you know, everyone's pictured in their head, like, I'm gonna walk in on the first day and go to school every day, you know, everyone's gonna be my best friend and everything. But no, you have half the friends, you go half the time. But honestly, I kind of feel like I almost like it better than how school was normally. Just because, I don't know, like, all the, like, the regulations and stuff, they're here for our safety. And, I don't know, the people who can't understand that need to learn some perspective. And I get that everyone has, like, a different perspective. Like, for our family, we have family members who are immunocompromised. So obviously, our immediate thought is to, like, wear the masks and all this stuff. But some people, they don't know people like that. And so their automatic response is, well, why would I have to do that? But in order to have all these, with all these regulations that we have, it's a good way to keep everyone in the school safe, because we still go to school half the time and with safety precautions, but it allows us to have, you know, some good mental health because we're able to communicate with others we also have alone time in online school. And I feel like this year is going to be a lot more organized because whew, when we went on to online school, just like that, it was insane.
Right.
I was either getting no work from some teachers, like I didn't work in their class for the rest of the year, and then others I was spending like 4 hours a day, like I can't do this. I just lost my train of thought. Wow.
It's okay. They can edit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. That's great, Kinsley. Thank you so much. This is,
Yes.
you guys, thanks so much for sharing your perspective. That's wonderful. And it, if you ever doubted that children grow up to be like their mothers, good illustration right there of me and Andrea and our little soapboxes. You guys both did a great job of
To get on a
the
soapbox.
things that we've told you. So great.
Yes.
Did you
Very
one more thing she wanted to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Say a little louder.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Never
No problem.
done this before, but also because we had to be safe for COVID-19 because of my grandpa. He has a lung.
Advanced COPD and is
That-
preparing for a lung transplant.
Yeah, and he has to have like sometimes that
He wears oxygen all
yeah,
the time.
oxygen
Mhm.
all the time because he just needs it, and you have to be very careful. He's gonna once he gets the transplant, he's going to live in our basement for at least a year, and then we have to quarantine him, which is kind of hard because my brother actually lives down there, and so like, what are we gonna do? Like, is he gonna go downstairs, move somewhere else? But I don't think so. But he'll probably go down. But it's also just safe instead of just like coming home from school, not washing your hands, throwing your mask like on the floor or somewhere where usually you're not supposed to like put yucky stuff there or anything,
Mhm.
and then just come downstairs and touch everything that my grandpa may touch and possibly get him sick and could die.
Yeah, that
So,
like I mentioned before that I had a kidney transplant, so I know that time after a transplant there's a lot you have to do to be very careful. And actually, for me, that would almost gave me an advantage in getting used to the conditions of quarantine and COVID-19 because it wasn't new to me. I'd done all this before for a shorter period of time, but yeah, that is really challenging to take seriously, and it's something to take very seriously. Thank you for sharing that with us. We are, this has turned out to be one of our longer episodes because we have a number of guests and a lot of great perspective to share. So it's time for us to start wrapping this up. First of all, I just want to tell all of you, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You've really given us so much to think about, and we've been able to look at this from a variety of different perspectives.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that anybody wants to share just as we're wrapping up? Just any thoughts about any of this that you want to finish up with?
just to piggyback on what both of my daughters were discussing. I mean, for our family, I've got kids in elementary, junior high, and high school. And, a big part of the debate in my district about whether or not to go back to school 4 days a week or to have this hybrid schedule or to go to online entirely, the proponents of going back full-time were really, really hung up on mental health. And obviously, my children are my number one priority, but I feel like we have this situation in our home that I hope has given us a well-rounded perspective in that I've got to be concerned about my father, who is in extreme high-risk situation. I am his primary caretaker, but I'm also the primary caretaker of 5 children, and I have to be concerned about their mental health too. And so having this opportunity to have this hybrid situation enables my kids to still, I've got this fine line that I have to walk, right? I have had these battles in my mind. Do I send my children to school at all? Is this too much of a risk for my family? And certainly if case numbers start going up like crazy in my school district, I'll have to pull my children from school because I have to protect my father. But in the same breath, I am all for common sense practices and doing the best that we can to maintain our way of life, to maintain our mental health, but also being able and willing to look outside of ourselves. And I know that these kids here, we've had a lot of discussions on that, on what it means to not just be concerned about what COVID-19 means for them personally, but what it means for the community around us. And so, you know, for us, it can be touchy. It's been a hard topic. I've had friends say, I can't believe you're letting your children go to school 2 days a week, given your father's situation. Or I can't believe you wouldn't let your children go to school every day of the week because their mental health is so important. And so where do we draw that line? What do we do? Well, for me, this is the best compromise that I could come up with. Common sense, social distancing practices, decreasing class sizes, allowing us to do the best that we can to implement the safety measures required by the Utah Department of Health and by the CDC, and not ignoring the fact that COVID is still here. Maybe if you don't have a high risk situation in your home, you want to go about living your life as if everything were normal, that's great for you. But when you bring that virus to your community and to high-risk individuals, there are consequences to pretending like COVID is gone. And it is not okay. I will finish with this. Who are you to say that your wellness and your being okay if you were to get the virus is more important than somebody else who wouldn't be okay? Why can we not just do the best that we can to not only protect ourselves, but be willing to protect our community? As for me and my kids, we are working, I am trying to raise my children to be thoughtful, committed citizens, right? There's that classic Margaret Mead quote that never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. A small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. It starts with our families. It starts with that small group. And if we can teach them to look outside themselves, I think that we can get through this pandemic together as a community. I don't want to do it alone. I need everybody's help to protect the one.
Absolutely. That's how I feel about it. And that was something that impressed me with all four of the kids talking here, is that we have young people who are looking at this not just from the perspective of how it affects them, but how it affects all of us as a whole. And I wish that more adults were doing better at taking that kind of broad perspective, as you say, looking outside yourself and just realizing that this affects everybody. Because
And
as
honestly,
a person myself, I've told people over and over again, I can do everything possible to keep myself safe, but unfortunately, my survival depends on as much on how safe other people, how other people are behaving as it does on what I'm doing. And we all need to look at this as from a perspective of how it affects everybody. Thank you again so much for joining us. Dave, looks like you have something to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one last thing. The next month is going to be terribly interesting. I mean both.
Very optimistic way of saying it, Dave.
I mean both of those words in the full extent that they can be conveyed. Because as a science teacher and enthusiast, I kind of see this whole thing as being a science experiment that we never really wanted to be in.
Totally.
And so it's terrible that we're in this situation. It's interesting to see what's going to happen. I don't know if what we are able to do in the schools is going to be enough. I do what I can. I sanitize my desks between every period. Any shared materials get sanitized. I make sure when kids leave the room, they leave the room with at least 4 feet across away from them, because my room doesn't support 6 feet. The maximum capacity in my room is 24 students. It's a 100-year-old setup. My largest class has 37 students. So there are serious structural impediments that keep me from being able to follow the guidelines. I do what I can, and I hope it's enough. And the next month is really going to inform a lot of us just how much we need to do to minimize the risk of sending students back in full.
Absolutely.
thank you again so much for joining us. We'll end it there. Thanks again, everybody. And for those who are listening, we hope you'll join us again next week, and have a great evening.
Thanks, guys. Have a great school year.
Thank you.